This sort of came up on last night's show because the Coyotes, they're in a 7-game skid. We talked about, how much of the onus is on Andre Tourigny. And then we talked about the leadership group. We talked about Shane Doan and what he would possibly be doing in this scenario. We talked about the veteran leadership, who are the leaders on this team. And for 3 years, we've talked about the fact that there has not been a captain on this team, and there hasn't been since Oliver Ekman-Larsson got traded to Vancouver. We've talked to Bear about it in an installment of Bear Necessities, which you can go watch right now on the PHNX Sports YouTube channel. He explains his philosophy on leadership and captaincy. PD and Craig have different feelings on this subject. Yesterday,
I would describe them as enlightened and dark ages.
Oh my God. The Philadelphia Flyers yesterday named Sean Couturier captain, which means there's only 4 NHL teams remaining without a captain: Arizona, Anaheim, Chicago, and Seattle. Times are tough.
Yeah, what do those teams have in common? They all stink. They're all last.
Here we
They're
go.
all nowhere near a freaking playoff spot. Do you think that coincidence?
Do you think that the Coyotes should have it we've talked about why not, a guy will, make themselves known at some point or another. But in a time like this, with all the noise on the outside and the struggles on the ice, is a captain necessary? The floor is yours.
I say you could have a captain if a captain emerges. I agree with Andre on that. I'm not opposed to the idea of a captain. I just think that person has to be obvious, like Shane Doan was for this organization. That guy has to bring all the elements that Andre talked about in that Bare Necessities episode. He can't just be, the guy that's aware of everything that's going on, the smart guy like Nick Schmaltz, or the talker that's encouraging or, pushing people like Clayton Keller. He has to be also the guy that puts the arm around their shoulder like Lawson Krause. If you can find a guy who combines those things, if you can find a guy who can truly inspire the players and speak for the entire group, I'm not opposed to it at all. I just don't know that the Coyotes have that guy yet. So I'm not sure that they're ready for a captain. The other side of this is, I think the whole notion of single leadership is antiquated. It's sort of this sheep mentality that the NHL follows. Oh, you got to have a captain because everybody else does it. Well, show me the data that it actually matters. Prove to me. There's a lot of research on different leadership styles and how collaborative group leadership can actually be more effective because it brings more opinions. People are more invested because they feel like they have a say.
That's in business, Craig. That's in business, not in sports. Come on. You have a leader, you have a captain. In hockey, more than any other sport, leadership matters, and you have a captain for a reason. You have 5 captains in football. Who gives a shit? In hockey, it matters. He's your captain. He's your voice of the team to the officials. He's the only voice, the little only voice that can speak to the officials. He's the voice that should be right now in front of the cameras. We should be hearing from the captain. This team's lost 7 in a row. We should hear from a captain. But you know what? They can all hide in the room because there isn't one. Oh, I'm not the leader. You're the leader. I'm not the leader. A leadership group, my ass. Just get one captain. I've been in the room with leadership groups with 7 or 8 guys, and they're the leadership group. Guess what they all had in common? They had a captain. That one guy comes in and goes, hey, coach, we need a day off. Hey, coach, you know what? We really don't want to fly tomorrow. Can we fly the next day? And here's why. It's a captain. And I think it's funny that it is ironic that the 4 teams that don't have captains, 3 of them are in last. It's not, I really believe that's not a coincidence. And while we don't have a captain, look at some of these captains across the NHL. Do you think some of these guys are the guy? You think Jamie Benn is a quality guy that's hugging his teammates? No, he's just the guy. He's the best guy that they have right now. You can walk into the Coyotes room, pick a captain, vote on a captain until you get a new captain, then strip that captain away. Right now, I've said it from day one, Clayton Keller's captain of this team. Make him the C, make him more responsible, put more weight on his shoulders because I think he needs to be accountable. And right now, he's not the guy. He's not the leader. I think it's important in hockey. I think that voice is the voice of the entire room. I think they can bond behind him. And you're right. There is no Shane Doan in there, Craig. There isn't. And if there was, boy, would this be a different situation. There isn't Shane Doan. And maybe Lawson Krause is part of that. I don't know. But I believe that there needs to be a captain to represent this group, especially in situations like this when there's a media press conference release. They know who to go to and they know who to step up. When you guys went to Australia, who did all the center ice faceoffs? Who did all the media appearances? Who was the guy that was the face of the franchise? It was Clayton Keller. Just put a letter C on it. Does it affect everything that much? Is it like, oh my God, he didn't step forward? It was one is a unanimous vote across all the counties. Like, no, he's your captain. Name the captain, because I think this team needs a leader, and I think it needs a leader more now than ever.
Where do you think media responsibilities and speaking to the media about what's happening on the team ranks on Andre Tourigny's list of priorities for this team?
Very little.
Exactly. Exactly.
Very
I
low.
don't know. I'm not convinced. Like I said, I'm not opposed to it. I'm not opposed to having a leader if there's a clear-cut leader. I think it's a practice that has just been repeated without a lot of thought. I think Andre's done some reading on leadership styles and what makes effective leadership, and he has a different philosophy.
I bet you there's not a team that's ever won the Stanley Cup without a captain. Let somebody do the research for me. Somebody Google it right now in the chat, and I bet it's never happened.
But again, it's like, how many have actually gone without a captain? You point out these
There's
four
my
teams.
research.
Oh, these four teams.
You want to win the cup? Get a captain.
I think these four teams don't have a captain because these four teams don't have a guy. And by the way, all four of these rosters stink. That's why they're not doing well. They're just not very good rosters.
Yeah, Adam Henrique, I'd give him the C. Give Bedard the captaincy right now. You might as well. That's what they did to Connor McDavid. Just get it over with. I just think I think Clayton Keller's 25 years old. It's not like he's 19. Like, it's time. Shane Doan was 27. Like, it's time.
That's a good question too, Xerxes. What happens when a designated captain doesn't have the leadership capabilities? Let's talk about Oliver Ekman-Larsson and how that went when they named his seed. How'd that work out?
Yeah, it was a disaster. He was the captain. He clearly should have been the captain, and I think it was a mistake that they didn't give him the captaincy in the year that he was promised to be the captain by the general manager, that the coach came in and said, no, and well, no, we didn't promise it. We did promise it. We told him he was captain, and then you're not a captain.
Yeah.
He was clearly the captain of that team. No one will tell me different. He's just a different leadership style, just like Teppo Newman is a different leadership style than Keith Tkachuk. Completely different leaders. Completely different. And you've talked to enough people around there, Craig. You know who the guy is. Like, they'll tell you. And it's two names. Everyone tells me it's Keller
or
and
Krause.
Maybe Krause.
Yep.
That's what I hear. It's Keller's first and maybe Krause. And that's players, that's staff, that's coach. That's who it is. Like, I don't get it. And is that why they're losing? No. But I don't understand why it's so difficult to come out and say we're doing leadership by committee. Well, then your committee sucks, because there's no leadership right now.
That's
leadership fair. Leadership to me is the way they're playing over the last 7 games. Leadership is the guy that's going to shut the door and go, okay, we need to be better here. I don't care. It can be a guy that Brad Richardson didn't wear a letter. He would shut the door and tell you guys, you suck. You need to be better. And some people say, well, he's got to be a first-line player. Kyle Okposo is not a first-line player. For the Buffalo Sabres, he's their captain. He can shut the door and say, we need to do better. I'm seeing a lack of leadership, whether it's a single person or a group leadership with this team in the last 10 days. And I know the arena is heavy over everybody. I get it. But somebody's got to put this team on their back and go, we need to play better. And if you guys aren't going to do it, I'm going to do it. I'm going to go out there and you're going to see me. My motor's going to run for the 16, 13, 12 minutes I'm out there. I'm going to work like hell. I haven't seen it. And maybe that's happening inside.
Let's roll with that idea. Do they, we talked about what great guys they brought in terms of character. Do they have anybody that has that nasty edge like Brad Richardson? Maybe they need that.
Yeah, and I don't have the answer, and I wish I knew these guys well enough to be inside the room. And you don't have to be a captain to have that voice. And Brad Richardson didn't have a captain; it didn't have a letter, and he was part of that leadership 100%. And it's okay to be a little bit of a sandpaper in there. You need the guy that will stand up and go, "What the f is going on?" Shane Doan had trouble with that. So there were often other players that did it. And sometimes it's a goalie. Like Sean Burke would do that. Sean Burke would call his players accountable and be able to stand up and voice it in the room. The one problem with the goalie doing is you better be playing pretty damn good, because if you're not playing good and you start mouthing off, guys turn on you really quick. And I would name names, but I won't, because that has happened also. Craig, I agree. Maybe there's too many nice guys in there. Maybe there's nobody in there that can look at the guy next to him and go, you're not playing good enough. And that's when you played back in the late 90s and early 2000s, Keith Tkachuk, Jeremy Roenick, Rick Tocchet, Buddy, vicious. We talked about on the show how vicious they were. They were vicious to each other. I've talked to Ulf Samuelsson back when they were at the Pittsburgh Penguins and they were winning. He said there were fist fights. Like it was that much of, you're letting your teammates down, and you're going to hear about it. And I think you might be right. Maybe that's another tack. Maybe there just isn't that guy that feels like he's got. And I don't see Clayton Keller being that guy.
Nope.
just standing on a soapbox and yell. I don't see Lawson Krause being that guy. So yeah, I don't know if they've got that voice in that room right now that it's all kumbaya and let's hold hands and everybody loves each other. But sometimes that doesn't work, and I think that's what we're seeing now.
Yeah, the only guy that when I go like through the names, the only guy that I could maybe envision being that guy is a guy like Jason Zucker. I don't know.
They all love Jason Zucker. The only thing that he has over the rest of them is he's played with some of these guys that we've mentioned. He's been in locker rooms that have competed for the highest level, and he's the veteran guy that some guys may be turning to right now. And I honestly thought that would be one of his roles right now. And I can't speak to it, but I don't know if he's that guy. And I think part of it with him is, and we heard it. Remember when he talked to you after he made a mistake that gave up a game-winning goal? He's like, "Oh, I got to be better." And I'm not sure if he's willing to voice opinions if he's not playing at his best. And he might be saying, "It's hard for me to call out somebody else if I'm not the guy." And that's why. And I keep going back to Brad Richardson. It didn't matter if Brad Richardson was performing and putting numbers up on the score sheet. What mattered to Brad Richardson is he was working hard. Yeah. And Brad Richardson, you can always work hard. You can't always put numbers on a board. You can't always score, but you can always work hard. And Brad Richardson did, so he could call people out on their effort. He could, because who's going to say you're not working? So yeah, I do think, Craig, maybe you're right on committee, but right now I think that this looks like there is a void of leadership, and maybe a C doesn't solve that.
I did have Jacob put a poll in the chat, so we can close the poll, Jacob, so I can see the results. But just a couple of comments. Roaring Fork had said the Coyotes don't have anyone on the team that's captain material, but then added, when everyone's accountable, no one is. Jen Paul said what they're doing right now is not working. Maybe we need to pivot. The results of the poll, 96. So the question was, should the Coyotes have a captain right now? And 96% of people said yes.